I've been in show business since I was 14. They're trying. The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They're trying to get me to take psychotic medication.
What do you think about them accusing Diddy of having cameras in his house so he can record celebrities and politicians and use it as blackmail?
I firmly believe that's true because in that sector of people, a lot of them practice Scientology.
Why didn't they ask Leah Remini? She's a little more credible. But then again, she might have been able to pull some of their cards because a lot of them motherfuckers is involved in that Scientology bullshit too.
We all know there's different treatment for celebrities.
Well, especially in Scientology, right?
No.
It's highlighted.
It is like nothing you could ever imagine. It is, so when people say Tom doesn't leave because they have information on him or John, that's not the reason. The amount of power they receive from this church is like nothing.
Some wild news stories have been making the rounds lately, and they've got people seriously rethinking what really happened when Dave Chappelle walked away from that $50 million Comedy Central deal and disappeared to Africa. According to these reports, it wasn't just a mental health break or stress from fame. There are claims that the Church of Scientology was actually trying to get to him, and that Diddy may have helped. Some say they were trying to recruit Chappelle, and when that didn't work, the plan might have been to silence him. But this goes way deeper than just religion or celebrity drama. This is about control, blackmail, and making sure the biggest names in the industry stay in check. For years, there have been long-running rumors about Diddy's so-called freak-offs. Private parties that weren't just about partying. Insiders claim these events were sometimes used to trap celebrities and even powerful political figures in shady situations, all to gather dirt on them. It's the kind of stuff that makes you wonder who's really in control. And here's where it gets even crazier, because if you've ever heard stories about Scientology, they sound oddly similar. Multiple former members have come forward over the years saying the church kept tabs on people, used their secrets against them, and even made threats to keep them quiet. The pattern is hard to ignore, but here's the twist: a lot of people don't even think Diddy is the one running the show. Many believe he's just a pawn, someone being used by even more powerful figures working behind the scenes.
I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid, like,
But you were stressed out. That's
there's
why.
no question. But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, you're insane.
Let's talk about the rumors surrounding Diddy and his possible ties to the Church of Scientology, because this part of the story really starts to raise eyebrows. Diddy has been a huge figure in the entertainment industry for years. He's been around top actors, producers, and agents. Basically, all the major players in Hollywood. And since way back in the 1980s, the Church of Scientology has also had strong roots in the industry, especially among rich and powerful people. So it's not a stretch to think Diddy and Scientology have crossed paths over the years, or at least moved in the same high-level circles. Now here's where it gets interesting. Starting in the early 2000s, there were reports that Scientology was trying to bring in more black celebrities. The goal? To help improve the church's public image. They wanted to be seen as more inclusive, and what better way than by recruiting rich, famous entertainers? And guess who was one of the names that started coming up? Dave Chappelle. There are rumors that after Chappelle turned down that massive $50 million Comedy Central deal and suddenly flew to Africa, certain groups saw him as a problem. According to these theories, Dave wasn't just stepping away from Hollywood. He was trying to break free from powerful forces that didn't like losing control over someone that big. Some say that both Scientology and people close to Diddy were involved in trying to pull Dave back in, or silence him. One of the most bizarre claims came from an old website called chappellestheory.com. It told this crazy story about a secret group known as the Dark Crusaders, a supposed alliance of powerful black leaders who allegedly tried to pressure Dave into falling in line. According to that theory, they even threatened to go after his children if he didn't cooperate. It sounds unbelievable, but it gained traction for a reason.
How do I know this?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How do you know this?
Do you know Sean Combs?
Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, whatever you call himself
Yeah.
these days. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's part of what's called the Boule. The Boule is a branch of the Illuminati.
Okay.
And it's the black people. Okay. I'm from Africa, so I'm not a racist. I had settlement with Sean, okay? And he belongs to that agenda. That's why he's so famous. They land all the contracts.
All right, let's get into Diddy's possible connection to Scientology, because this part of the story really has people talking. Now, to be clear, Diddy has never publicly said he's a Scientologist, but that hasn't stopped people from wondering. Why? Because he's often seen in the same circles as some major Hollywood names who are linked to the Church of Scientology. People like Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, both of whom have been tied to the church in different ways over the years. Let's start with the Smiths. A while back, Will and Jada opened a private school in California called the New Village Leadership Academy. According to Will, they just wanted to shake up the education system and make learning more exciting for kids. But it didn't take long before parents started raising questions. They discovered that the school was using a teaching method called study tech, which was actually developed by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. And it wasn't just the curriculum that raised eyebrows. A bunch of the staff, including the learning director, the qualifications director, and even the artistic director, were confirmed Scientologists. The school's own website even talked about Hubbard's methods. As more people caught on, the connection to Scientology became too hard to ignore, and eventually, the school quietly shut down. Now, Jada has always insisted she's not a Scientologist. But here's the thing. She has admitted to studying Dianetics, a major part of Scientology. And she's openly used study tech in her own educational projects. And it doesn't stop there. According to former members of the church, Jada was seen many times at Scientology centers in Los Angeles, especially the well-known Celebrity Center, where a lot of famous names go. One person who called this out was Leah Remini, an actress who left Scientology and later became one of its loudest critics. In her book, Troublemaker: Surviving Hollywood and Scientology, Leah didn't hold back. She wrote that she saw Jada at the church several times and said it was hard to believe someone could be that involved and still claim they weren't part of it. But that's not all. Leah also shared a really strange story involving the Smiths and Tom Cruise, who's probably Scientology's biggest celebrity member. According to Leah, she was once invited to Tom's house for a private gathering with Will and Jada. Seems normal enough, right? Until Tom suddenly wanted everyone to play hide and seek. Seriously. Leah thought he was joking, but he wasn't. Leah also later talked about this bizarre experience in an interview with the Daily Beast and said that Jada was definitely a Scientology member. At one point, I know Jada's in. She's been in Scientology a long time. Leah said, I never saw Will there, but I saw Jada at the Celebrity Center. They opened up a Scientology school and have since closed it, but Jada, I had seen her at the Scientology Celebrity Center all the time. Now let's talk about Jamie Foxx, because his story really adds another layer to all of this. Jamie used to talk openly about going to Diddy's parties. He didn't act like he was hiding anything. In fact, he made it sound like just another part of his Hollywood life. He even said he recorded some of those parties, which made a lot of people raise their eyebrows. If you know anything about the rumors around Diddy's parties, you know why that's a big deal.
There's been negative propaganda put out about me. That's not true.
At that time, Puff was the biggest guy in the world. You know, you couldn't even get in his parties. So the way I would get in his parties, I'd show up with a camera.
Puff, yo, you gotta let me film this. The whole thing, we need to document this, Playboy.
Puff is there, and it's all about him. And I'll never forget, he got mad at me.
So, Jamie Foxx suffered a very serious medical emergency that landed him in the hospital.
Yo, Fox, fuck it. Puff's it's kind of, I'm like, damn, this shit's crazy, man. So what I did was, I would show up to the party in my little, in a little town car. There's a town, you know, I grabbed me a town car so I could skirt. Puff, the SUVs and the Bentleys, the whole night. He get out. I get out too with a camera. The big Canon, like, yo, Puff, I should document this shit, right? Yo, what's up, Playboy? What you talking about? I said, I should get this, man. You files for the whole night. He said, yeah, let him through. Excuse me. So I get the, but at that time, it wasn't like the little camera y'all got in. It was the big intrusive Canon. I had a battery pack. Hold on, man. Let me change the pack. Put my light on him. Do that again, Puff. Do that again. I missed that one. Do that again. Put the pack. So I started following him.
Also, let's not forget that Jamie used to date Katie Holmes, who's the ex-wife of Tom Cruise, who is considered the most powerful Scientologist in Hollywood.
Well, you know what? It's something that has helped me incredibly in my life. Yeah. I've been a Scientologist for over 30 years, and it's something that, as you know, without it, I wouldn't be where I am. Yeah. You know, so it's a beautiful religion, and I'm very proud.
Let's talk about Scientology's grip on Hollywood, because at this point, it's impossible to ignore. Their influence runs deep. They've got a long history of celebrity members, and they're known for using loyal insiders, private investigators, and powerful legal teams to protect their image at all costs. They don't play around when it comes to keeping their secrets safe. So when people say Diddy might have some kind of connection to Scientology, even if it's just through mutual circles, It's not that far-fetched to think the same protective tactics could be used to cover up anything shady tied to him. Especially if those scandals involved big names or dark secrets. And if you need proof of how far Scientology will go to protect their people, just look at what happened with Danny Masterson, the actor from That 70s Show. He was a practicing Scientologist, and 2 women, who were also part of the church, came forward and accused him of rape. These weren't new claims either. They said the assaults happened between 2001 and 2003. But instead of helping the victims, the church allegedly pressured them to stay quiet and avoid going to the police. For almost 20 years, the whole thing was buried, swept under the rug. But finally, in September 2023, the truth came out. Masterson was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. Justice may have been delayed, but it caught up with him in the end. Now here's where it gets even. More interesting. One of Danny Masterson's closest friends is Ashton Kutcher, another big Hollywood name. And Ashton? He's also faced whispers about his connections to Diddy. So when Danny was convicted, Ashton and his wife, Mila Kunis, did something that shocked a lot of people. They wrote letters to the judge asking for a lighter sentence. Yes, really. Ashton even called Danny a role model and praised his character.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years so that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read.
At the end of the day, Ashton and Mila did say they were sorry if their letters upset anyone. But honestly, it didn't really sound like a true apology. It felt like they were just trying to smooth things over without really owning up. But the story didn't stop there. After Ashton and Mila stood by Danny Masterson, another one of his accusers, Chrissy Carnell Bixler, stepped up with some serious claims. She basically called Ashton out, saying he's hiding some dark secrets, and she even hinted that Mila might have been hurt too. Chrissy's message to Ashton was intense. She wrote, "Dear Ashton, I know the secrets your role model keeps. Secrets that could ruin you. Did you forget I was there? I heard everything when you called Danny on speakerphone that night in February 2001. I heard the whole plan. Honestly, I think you're just as sick as your mentor." Then Chrissy turned to Mila saying, "I hope you start to understand what you went through as a kid on that set. I know what happened in Toronto and afterward. If you think that's a normal relationship with a big brother figure, I feel really sorry for you. I hope you think about getting help in therapy." Now, as far as we know, Ashton hasn't officially joined the Church of Scientology. But that doesn't mean he's not involved in some unusual spiritual groups. Fans found out Ashton has been practicing Kabbalah for years and is a member of the Los Angeles Kabbalah Center. Here's the catch. The Kabbalah Center isn't your average spiritual place. Some experts, including cult specialist Rick Allen Ross, have actually called it a cult. That just adds more questions about Ashton and the kinds of people and ideas he's connected with.
At the Birds. So this is an organization that has a long history of bad press, complaints, and allegations that it is a destructive cult.
The Kabbalah Center is often described as being pretty similar to Scientology. Both operate like tight-knit, secretive groups where loyalty runs deep and there are strict, almost mysterious rules everyone has to follow. So if Ashton and Danny are involved with these kinds of organizations...
What do you think about them accusing Diddy of having cameras in his house so he can record celebrities and politicians and use it as blackmail?
I firmly believe that's true because in that sector of people, a lot of them practice Scientology. And Scientology, that was their thing. They would get people in compromising positions. They'll hold that footage over their head and get them to agree to things. I think he one of them Scientology people, because that's probably where he got that from. A lot of powerful guys operate like that. So the things I'm seeing with him, it all makes sense.
And then Jaguar Wright also chimed in suggesting there's a link between Scientology and the rumored secret society of powerful Hollywood elites.
Why didn't they ask Leah Remini? She's a little more credible. But then again, she might have been able to pull some of their cards, because a lot of them is involved in that Scientology bullshit too. That's LA, right into the corner where Biggie is. I was just there, literally. And that building, it's this big, gaudy, Masonic looking thing. You know, it's all right, architecturally wise. But what gets really interesting about it is when the sun goes down, They turn the lights on. Blood red. Sure blood red. The whole building glows. Sure blood red. I don't know. It just feels disturbing to me. You put this thing up that looks like some kind of Masonic monument where Biggie Smalls was to that. And at night, you thought that the color should be blood red. I don't know.
You spoke about Scientology.
Yeah.
Does that have to do with anything with the Illuminati, or is that just separate entities?
They're separate entities, but they work in tandem. They spy on each other's people for each other. You know, if they don't want to make it look like they're stalking one of their, defectees, they'll ask somebody from TMZ to do it for them. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud, allegedly. Harvey. They farm it out, make it seem like it's just paparazzi stuff when they're actually doing investigation. And Scientologists, they're relentless. A lot of people farm out their gaslighting work to them for a profit. That's LA.
You don't have to be a conspiracy expert to see how Diddy's rumored ways of controlling people and Scientology's known tactics share a lot in common. Both rely on isolating people, messing with their minds, watching their every move, pressuring them, and using fear to keep them loyal and quiet. Take Scientology's practice of cutting off suppressive persons, for example. That means if anyone speaks out against the church, even family members are pressured to completely cut ties with them. They have to disconnect from anyone who criticizes Scientology, no matter how close those people are.
Do they try to take things out against you? If you leave the church or you speak out against, what do they try to do? Do they try to suppress you?
They have a policy called fair game that they claim has been canceled. And they, in fact, did issue another policy that says fair game has been canceled. However, there's another policy that says, however, dealing with suppressive people remains the same. Dealing with suppressive people means to go after them, try to destroy their lives, try to find any crimes they've committed, expose them hard. You can lie about them. They have Scientologists picketing in front of people's houses going, don't trust your neighbor, implying that he's a sexual deviant. They go after your jobs. And when that doesn't work, they go after your family.
As for Diddy, Cassie described in her lawsuit how he started cutting her off from her friends and family when she was just 19. She was reportedly watched, controlled, and kept close to him, which are classic patterns of grooming and coercion.
So I wanted to get us all together so we could get this, everybody can hear from me how focused and excited I am about the project. I wanted, Cassie to, everybody to meet Cassie. Y'all don't know that. And hear the story directly from Miles, and then really get down to some business about, just so we can be on the same page of what the plan is, as far as from Tommy's concerned, from where we're concerned as also later.
Here's the thing. In both situations, the person causing the pain ends up being the only one the victim can turn to for comfort or safety. Imagine being trapped like that, when the very person who's hurting you is also the only one who seems to care. It's no wonder it's so hard for people to walk away from that kind of situation. Then there's this thing Scientology does called auditing. It's a process that targets people's emotional weak spots and convinces them that their own struggles or trauma are actually their fault. They call this the reactive mind. Instead of trusting their own feelings or instincts, people are trained to doubt themselves and just follow what the church tells them.
One of the fundamental principles of Scientology is that a person can improve his condition only if he is allowed to find his own truths about himself. In Scientology, this is accomplished through auditing. Auditing is the process of asking specifically worded questions designed to help you find and handle areas of distress. This is done with an auditor, meaning one who listens. An auditor does not offer solutions or advice. They are trained to listen and to help you locate those experiences that need to be addressed. But some experiences are so deeply buried within the mind, they are not easily recalled. The auditor helps you pinpoint these with the aid of an e-meter. When you think of something that has upset or stress connected to it, this shows up on the meter. your attention can now be directed to that thought. Through auditing, one is able to look at their own existence and discover the past experiences that are holding them back against their will.
When it comes to Diddy, multiple people have spoken out about how he used some pretty familiar manipulation tactics. Here's how it works. First, he would hurt or put them down emotionally, then suddenly switch gears and shower them with gifts and attention. But this wasn't just generosity. It came with an unspoken expectation that they'd feel thankful and stay loyal. This kind of push and pull is what experts call trauma bonding, and it's incredibly hard to break free from once you're caught in it. Now let's talk about control through money, because that's another big part of the picture. In Scientology, members often spend massive amounts of cash on something called the Bridge to Total Freedom.
Normally, the beginning courses are like $50. Not really expensive things. It's not committal. You don't have to sign your life away. When you finish that course and you go and see the Reg, basically a salesperson, who then goes, all right, cool, this is the next thing you need to do.
As for Diddy, he would create dependency in his victims by offering luxurious gifts, lifestyle perks, and career opportunities only to use them against people later, and some victims were allegedly paid off or silenced by Diddy and his co-conspirators with NDAs and hush money.
Names, and we want to be assured that there's not hush money agreements going on and that he's not simply dangling the idea that he's going to drop these names before he has the opportunity to reach a settlement.
Yeah, I mean, on Fox News, their lawyer Brian Claypool said if Combs doesn't testify in this case, he's dead on arrival. Would you concur with that?
Testimony is something that I guess it has only some value to it, because of course he's going to deny it if he were to testify. I think what the case really comes down to is the corroborating evidence.
And then, of course, there's the whole issue of blackmail, which many think is at the heart of the Diddy case. Scientology uses something called knowledge reports and blackmail to keep members silent. And they reportedly use sensitive information from auditing sessions to blackmail members.
Andrew Morton, the man who stripped bare Princess Diana's private life, then Monica Lewinsky's, is about to release his new book about Tom Cruise. It features extraordinary claims about Scientology's #1 recruit and his second wife, Nicole Kidman. With the release of this new Andrew Morton book, it makes an extraordinary claim that Nicole, the information she gave out while being audited in the Church of Scientology is being used to blackmail her. Is this plausible? Is this possible? How does this? What do you make of these claims?
The nature of auditing is such that you're encouraged to reveal all of your deep, dark secrets and things that may be intimidating and embarrassing. And these things are all written down, and these files are kept permanently.
Now, let's talk about the rumors floating around that Diddy might be involved in some kind of blackmail scheme. A lot of people immediately think of the Jeffrey Epstein case because there are some serious similarities. Epstein reportedly had dirt on tons of people, celebrities, politicians, you name it, and was running a dark secret blackmail operation behind the scenes. When it comes to why this was all happening, I won't get into all the details here. Because, well, YouTube tends to be strict about this stuff. But if you start digging into Epstein's connections, especially the roles of his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell and her father Robert Maxwell, you'll begin to see the bigger picture.
Very few. Robert Maxwell was a newspaper owner, an entrepreneur, and an all-round crook. He plundered the pension fund of his newspaper and deprived thousands of pensioners of their life savings. He was a con man, and that's why he got on so well with the intelligence services. Whole books have been written about him, but I've only got time here to talk about his intelligence connections. He was born in Czechoslovakia before the Second World War to an Orthodox Jewish family, and he escaped the Nazi invasion, got to France, and from there joined the British Army. He did very well in the British Army and rose to the rank of Major. Just after the Second World War, his knowledge of languages, and it said that he spoke about 8 languages fluently, was used by the British Army and also British intelligence. But at some stage he also started working for Israel, and I think these days we would class him as an agent of influence. As a con man, he used his connections to whatever his advantage was, at the same time trying to please his 2 masters. Sometimes it's said that he was also working for the KGB, but in fact, if you look at his work, it's more likely that what he was doing was just using those contacts to establish a bridge, mostly for Israel, but also for Britain in certain missions. Now, the key thing about him is how he died. In 1991, his business empire was collapsing, burdened by debt, and he was also being quizzed about his connections with Israel. His naked body was found that November floating in the Atlantic Ocean. It was said that he'd had a heart attack and fallen off of the side of his yacht, the Lady is Lame. But there was a story going around at the time, and I can only call it a very well-informed story. What actually happened was that Mossad paid him a visit that night, and he was given an offer to step off the yacht and end it all.
When it comes to Diddy, there are rumors that he might have been using tactics similar to Epstein's. People say his infamous parties, his freak-offs, could have been part of a much darker blackmail operation. The speculation is that Diddy was bringing in big-name celebrities, getting them tangled up in risky or shady situations, and then using that to control or manipulate them. But here's the thing. Many believe Diddy wasn't the mastermind behind it all. Instead, he was more like middle management.
In order to understand this lawsuit against P. Diddy, you need to understand the history of blackmail. A lot of people in the comments are misunderstanding why rap music is so anti-gay. And a lot of people understand the ties of Israel and the Mossad to sexual blackmail by Epstein, but a lot of people don't realize the ties of blackmail back to the invention of blackmail and the Jewish mob. So if you don't know what's going on, Diddy, one of the most influential people in the rap industry over the last 30 years, just got served this court case that alleged all kinds of crimes, including murder and drugs and prostitution, but especially having all of his homes wired with cameras and hosting parties with underage girls, rappers, label executives, celebrities, politicians, and collecting blackmail on tons of important people. Like, we're talking Jeffrey Epstein level of operation, but in the music and entertainment industries. But the thing about a court case is that we're only getting the allegations that are in that case, and they're only relevant to what that defendant saw and experienced. And so the bigger picture is not filled in directly. You have to kind of understand the history of this stuff and what each thing might imply about the bigger picture. And that requires an understanding of the history of this stuff. And it's not complicated, and it's a wild story. So, the FBI was founded by J. Edgar Hoover. He actually was the head of the Bureau of Investigation, the BOI, before the FBI was even invented back in the 20s. He served there for 11 years. Then they invented the FBI, and he served as the head of the FBI for 37 years, totaling 48 years leading what was more or less the FBI. So we're talking like all the way from like the Great Depression through World War II into like the 60s. Like through the 60s music revolution into the 70s. All of that time period, the FBI was led by the same person, and he was one of the most corrupt government officials in all of US history. And understanding the state of organized crime and of law enforcement in America is impossible if you don't know about J. Edgar Hoover. And understanding the nature of sexual blackmail is impossible if you don't know about Meyer Lansky, who was a boss in the Jewish mob back in the 30s, 20s, like Prohibition days and so on. Meyer Lansky, this Jewish mob boss, basically invented the concept of sexual blackmail. And he did it by sexually blackmailing J. Edgar Hoover, the guy who was explicitly supposed to be taking guys like Meyer Lansky down. The Wikipedia articles are sanitized, but basically Meyer Lansky had a photo of J. Edgar Hoover using his mouth on his main assistant, Clyde Tolson. Realistically, it was his boyfriend. They were a couple. But then, once Hoover was blackmailed, he was like, F it, how much worse could it get? And so he started hosting blackmail parties in collusion with these mobsters and inviting all sorts of important people to these blackmail parties to collect his own blackmail. This all happened in what was called the Blue Suite at the Plaza Hotel. And it was basically a bunch of male cross-dressing orgies all caught on camera for like a decade or more. And because Hoover was already blackmailed by the most powerful gangsters in the world, like he just went and hosted them, and everybody got blackmailed on everybody. Back to our boy Diddy, who founded his record label when he was only 24 years old, became one of the most successful record labels of the time. He was able to do that because he was financed and supported by his mentor, who just happens to be gay and rich, and Jewish, just like Meyer Lansky was. And at the time, he was one of the most influential men in the music industry. He managed all kinds of the biggest name artists that you've ever heard of. And he found this guy, Diddy, on the up and up in one of his companies, who we now know from this lawsuit and the other lawsuit filed by his ex-girlfriend Cassie, which is horrific, disgusting, not a good read. We know that Diddy has some real effed up sexual proclivities, as well as just generally probably being at least gay or bi, one of the two. So Clyde finds this guy with questionable morals, questionable habits, and ready to go fucking crazy haywire, whatever. Like, he's willing to shoot people, he's willing to launder money, he's willing to do crazy drugs, he's willing to do basically anything. This is just me speculating on his motivations, but Diddy and brought him up and elevated him to a record executive by helping him found his label, Bad Boy Records. That was Clive's move. He did that. And then Diddy, along with a lot of help from a lot of other people all around him, proceeded to do 30 years worth of operations within the rap industry and promoted artists that seem to have been ensnared in it, like Usher, for example, like Meek Mills. Hell, even Justin Bieber is like directly in this storyline. And so, what you wind up with is a rap industry, a music industry that is full of people that are creating the types of music that the people above them, that the people that hire them, that the people that manage them want them to make. They're all terrified of stepping on the wrong toes or getting out of line or doing what they're not supposed to for one blackmail reason or the other.
And just when you think this story couldn't get any crazier, there's another connection that makes you stop and think. Epstein reportedly hired a crisis PR firm called Citri & Company. And guess what? That same firm also works with the Church of Scientology. So the more you dig, the more tangled and wild this whole situation becomes. Now put it all together. Rumors that Dave Chappelle was approached by a secret black Illuminati group tied to top Scientologists, Diddy's own, links to well-known Scientology members, and the whispers about his possible blackmail operation. At first, it might sound like something straight out of a thriller, or just a bunch of crazy conspiracy theories. But here's the thing. You don't have to take my word for it. You can dig into this yourself and decide if it's just weird, coincidences, or if there's something much deeper and more serious happening behind the scenes. So, what do you think? Are these connections between Diddy, Scientology, and powerful hidden players just random? Or is there more to the story? I want to hear your thoughts, drop a comment below, and don't go anywhere. There's a lot more to uncover in the next video. Hey,